This is Ron.
Yeah.
Shout out Greg A. It's Greg A's birthday.
Hey, shout out.
Ron
What
Holland.
up, though, man? Ron Holland, what up, though? Welcome to Detroit, Ron Holland. He's making more and more fans. You know, as the days go by, it's now 2 days since his selection. There's more and more people who are starting to come around to what this pick can mean.
This is Jahmyr Gibbs' pick. It was the Jahmyr Gibbs reaction, like, okay, I wasn't ready for that. I don't know what I'm thinking about it yet. Then you take a step back, you sleep on it, like, all right, 3-point shooting's a question mark, kind of like everything else.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
That's where it is. Everything else I like, especially defense, the mentality. You guys hear me talk about this a lot. Instinct. You got to have that instinct on defense to be able to unlock all the skill, all the talent, all the athleticism that you have. We've seen players come through this Detroit Pistons organization with the skill, with the talent, but they didn't quite have that instinct. And it just kind of left us really wanting and desiring a little bit more. But we also got to talk about the second round, the Detroit Pistons. They traded up to number 37 in the draft in the second round, and they selected
Bronny James.
Oh,
Hell
man.
no.
Bronny did get drafted. You know, Rich Paul, I got to admit.
By
you
force.
talk about
Right,
these
he
guys
almost
flexing. Yeah, LA Lakers. So father-son combo, they will be playing for the LA Lakers. This is going to be something very, very, very interesting.
Yes, we'll talk about it. I didn't mean to take the shine away from Mr. Bobi Klintman.
Yeah.
So tell us about it.
Klintman.
Bobby
Klintman.
Klintman.
Oh my
You know
God.
what?
Klintman. No. I hope that's not his new nickname. Please don't do that to this man.
Listen, he's from the NBL.
Simpsons.
And he did, you know what's interesting, man?
Better than the
Just
cum
really
bucket.
quick to talk about him. He did match up with a couple players at the top of this draft, including, I believe, it was Alex Sarr. And he actually did work against Alex Sarr, put up 24 points against Alex Sarr. But Bobby Klintman, 6'9", 225 pounds, 7-foot wingspan. And it's kind of the same archetype. We were talking about it just before the break or during the break with Justin. He's kind of that archetype that fits what Ron Holland is as well. I do believe that Ron Holland has the higher ceiling, has kind of played in this game, will need a little less to transition than Bobby Klintman, who played in the NBL over in Australia. So, similar type of guy, man. Got handles, can do kind of a little bit of everything well. I'll read off his stats for you guys. 10.2 points per game, 4.8 rebounds per game, 0.9 assists per game. He got 1 steal, a half a block. So the defensive numbers, including the stocks, they're not as robust as what you see out of Ron Holland. But the shooting numbers is where you get a little bit more promise here. Shoots less from the field than Ron Holland, about 44% from the field on 7.6 attempts per game. But from three, he's a very, very promising outside three-point shooter and a very, very promising off-ball and catch and shoot from behind the arc. 33.7, so almost 34% from behind the arc for Bobby Klintman on 3.5 attempts. So he and Ron Holland take about the same amount of threes per game, but you're seeing his percentage be about 10 to 12% better than where Ron Holland is, and 81% from the free throw line as well, which shows that he has a lot that you're going to be able to work with when concerning his shot release overall on the floor. He can get into the paint, he can dribble, he can drive, and I think that this is one in which when you see the Pistons trade up, that this isn't just one of those second rounders that they're just like, you know what, kind of whatever, we just want to kind of take a look at. It's intentional. Whether that's to make sure that you can kind of develop him a little bit more in the G League, or if you believe that this is one of the players you want to be able to utilize right now. Bobby Klintman is now a Detroit Piston with Ron Holland. And I can't wait to get a look at these guys at Summer League as well.
Stretch 4. Is this a stretch 4? Or has the ability to grow into that? Like with being a power forward-ish? I mean, you consider him a wing or a power forward?
I'm more of a wing, but it's
Big
these
wing?
tweener guys. This is where the NBA is going, you know. Jeremy Grant is probably more 3-ish forwards than these guys. But everybody, but were fours that were more like actual power forwards than Jeremy Grant. So it's this evolution of kind of tweeners that can play both, but he's probably going to be more efficient on that wing. And so what I see right now is a bunch of players that they don't necessarily have the connectability of a Cade Cunningham, but they do have some similar skill sets, and they're all going to be between 6'6", 6'8", or 6'9", with the ability to handle the rock a little bit, the ability to kind of create an ISO, the ability to push in transition. Some of them can shoot. Some of them are really good defensively. All of them kind of have a defensive instinct or a knack or a motor. And I can't wait to kind of ask these guys to identify for us, what is it that Trajan Langdon saw in them as what we're starting to coin Trajan Langdon guys.
I hear a lot. Oh, I like that. I hear a lot of Herb Brooks and Trey Jones-ishness in these descriptions, which I like. You know, and they weren't even the greatest shooters in college. Their first couple years in the league, I forget which is which. One's the 38% shooter, one's a 41% shooter. That's all you need to be dangerous, to set up your cut ability, to set up your ability to draw the defense out just a split second more or a little bit farther out, just to be dangerous around the three-point line for floor spacing and shooting.
Because the things that I like from, especially when you look at Ron Holland's tape, despite the shooting numbers, people still reacted to his hezzies and his pump fakes out there behind the arc. And when you have that type of athleticism and speed that Ron Holland has and that Bobi Klintman has, when you have the ball in your hands, they're not like floor burners, but there is a different level of speed that you have to quantify and consider when you have the ball in your hands. And those guys can make a split-second decision and get into the paint quickly, and they will dunk it on your head if you fall asleep on them. And so I like the archetype. I like where they're going. For everything that I love about Ausar Thompson on defense, who I believe is far ahead of where these guys are. Ausar Thompson entered the NBA as a 1 year out of high school, and absolutely was able to kind of stick with the ones and the twos in
the 3 to the 4.
Hey, everybody got it. But these players are coming in with a lot more offensive rhythm and bounce, and kind of offensive game and polish than Ausar did. So it'll be interesting to see where they slot. It will.
I'm excited. Again, it's just hard to picture without. These are the first two moves of Trajan Langdon. Whatever he's doing, whatever he's cooking up, these are the first two moves. So it's hard to project how they're going to fit. You know, who's going to be on the roster. We know these two are going to be on the team, but how's this all going to look in a month, then in 2 months? Yeah. We'll see. We'll see.
We're definitely going to see. And you know what? It's for me personally, I would have thought that they were going to look for a sharp shooter, maybe a guard, maybe a big man that you can kind of take a flyer on. Which makes this pick that much more interesting because it's another one of those players in this ever-growing and crowded 3-4 wing room. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if this is just a part of the strategy in terms of how he builds a team, or if there are some subsequent moves that are going to be happening on the other end of these types of deals. Because we got free agency just around the corner.
Kevin Huerter, bring him home.
You know, is Stewart somebody that you're looking at moving away from? You know, is there a bigger deal out there to bring in a big fish? But it might involve having to outgoing, maybe an Ivy or maybe an Ausar. We just don't know yet.
Juwan Howard, bring him home.
Listen,
Stop it, JB.
Hey,
Stop that shit over there, JB.
Not at all.
We're not playing that.
Not at all. Sparty fan over
He's
there.
with the Nets. Oh, so you can bring Cam Johnson with him.
I don't even want that contract with that injury
I'm
history.
good. Yeah.
Like, there were a lot of Piston fans. You look at what the Nets were. That's what a lot of the Piston fans wanted us to build our team like. And you look at how the wheels absolutely fell off of whatever they were trying to put together, despite all the talent that they had there.
Yeah.
Part of me is like, with what Trajan Langdon is trying to do, part of me is like, you know what? Maybe just take your time and build this thing the right way. Because you look at everything they had. Then they had Cam Johnson, Nick Claxton, Mikal Bridges. If you're telling me that the Pistons got those guys, I'm telling you they're making a play-in next year.
Yeah. Cam Thomas.
The Nets had those guys, and it wasn't the success that they thought it could be, and they paid them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just... It's coming. I mean, they're still obviously got Cam Johnson on the roster. They still got Nick Claxton. So for these Pistons, you know, I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to be still optimistic about the road ahead, but cautiously.
Yeah. He's not done. Not even close to being done. I think his first few splashes may not be long-term. You know, players that are on the Pistons when they're finally in the play-ins and the playoffs, but. It could be Zach LaVine's, Brandon Ingram. Again, contracts we got to figure out, but like, I look at Zach LaVine, the moves that they made, the picks that they picked don't affect Zach LaVine's game. Like, there's no competition there. Zach LaVine can still come in and play shooting guard next to Cade or bring the ball up or whatnot. So we'll see. Again, we don't know Trajan Langdon's strategy. You got to imagine he's going to go, even if it's an expiring contract, he's going to bring in shooters or a shooter. Yeah. Like, I keep hearing the Kings might have to move on from Kevin Huerter, and that's just a name I like. Like, I like his shooting ability. But you got to. I mean, even if it's an expiring contract or it's a contract that an old player, he still has to get shooting because you still need a shooter out there for Cade to be able to spread the floor.
But it does seem like the strategy for the Detroit Pistons right now is for them to be able to collect as many draft capital assets as possible. And the report yesterday was that the Detroit Pistons were seeking to be active as like a third team, where teams, two teams might want to trade, but they don't necessarily have the cap space to do it.
We'll take it.
But the Detroit Pistons can be one of those teams, but to be able to be that third team to facilitate the trade, that they take on some capital as well, and then they run it back with some of these young players. So it's going to be this free agency is going to tell us a lot about what they believe about this current roster. If they run it back, then they're assessing again, which is back-to-back assessment years, and that means they're not doing anything crazy in free agency except for just taking on big contracts like they did already with Joe Harris and Monte Morris. Yeah. And all they got to show out of that was I think a second-round pick or two.
But to be clear, it will be the second year in a row, but we / the fans gotta reset the clock. Yeah, I mean, as painful as it is, this is Trajan Langdon is just starting now. This is step one of the rebuild. Yeah, it's not step 2 or 3. We just unfortunately that's what makes last season such a bummer. But because it was such a nothing.
But it's just tough because you would think that this thing would be able to be kind of accelerated. Yeah, and I believe that if the young players beyond Cade were players that we believed in just a little bit more, then I do believe you can accelerate this thing. That's where I believe the issue is right now is the decision's probably being made on who is Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey. Who is Asar Thompson long-term on this squad? Who are these young players? Because if these guys are more established right now, you have to be able to take advantage of that window. But since you're still kind of sitting here like, you know what, who are these guys? I do think it puts kind of a pause on what you can do. Who knows what types of trades they've tried to cook up or other teams have called them for and what the values of these young players are. Yeah. And so they might find themselves in a position where that might be the best thing to move this thing forward. Because with them being more of question marks, this is what's going to really make this thing take the probably 3 to 5 year window rather than the 2 to 3.
Strap up, Pistons fans. I had to accept this yesterday after I had time to think on the Ryan Holland pick. This is going to be a long play. He told you himself you cannot skip steps. And he's going the route of that we've seen with Brad Holmes, Scott Harris, But it's good that you brought up those two because it has to work. With Brad Holmes, he sold us that, but it actually worked. He started bringing players in here that actually, accelerated the clock, and now we look up 3 seasons later and we're competing for a Super Bowl. The NBA timeline, a little bit different. And he's already touted that he's going to have Fred Vincent work on some of these guys' jump shots and things of that nature. That takes time. That's not a right-away process. So as much as I would like them to get this thing fixed in 2 to 3 seasons, because of course they can't fix it in this offseason, it might be longer than that. So we gotta get ready, man. Strap in.
But that's where I was kind of going. My point is, it's like he's not stepping into the same situation that Troy Weaver did. Yeah. When you're stepping into a situation, even though you don't necessarily know who these young players are, but when you're stepping into a situation where you do have young assets, draft capital, cap space, you don't have as much draft capital as you want, shouldn't it be a shorter time frame
than what
the Restore era and Troy Weaver and them said? Because when they started, they didn't have anything. They had to go out there and create.
They had to fix the books.
They had to go and fix the books. There were different things they had to do. They had dead money on the books. Right now, the Detroit Pistons are in one of the best kind of cap situations that they've ever been in. They have some of the best young talent that they've ever had, and you would think that would be a good launching point, even if it's not the foundation for the Trajan Langdon build, which we got to be fair to that because these are nice players. I would have assumed that this type of foundation helps to accelerate what you can do.
You will also think that, but I mean, when you hear stuff like agents didn't want these young prospects coming to work out for the Pistons, that pretty much,
and he confirmed it.
Yeah, exactly. That pretty much shows you like how bad this franchise is league wide. Nobody wants to come here. Nobody wants to take your money. You have plenty of it, but nobody wants to take it.
Bro, nobody wants to take your opportunity.
Yeah, it's bad, man. Crazy. It is bad, man. So
it's the NBA.
Yeah,
you got people saying, you know what?
I'm glad he was open and honest and said that.
He's been very transparent.
He has. And that helps me feel better about starting from scratch. We're not getting lip service. We're getting him being honest. Hey, And who can blame him? To be honest with you guys, in the last 10 years, who would want to come here? We talk about all the players that have success outside of Detroit, or start with the Pistons and Dinwiddie, Brown, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. The list goes on.
It's tough, man.
That exit here and have
tough.
great success, and all of the personnel that enters here who had success before, but then they instantly don't when they get here. It's both ends of the story,
right?
And people have to be thinking like, you know what? If I'm a superstitious person, if I'm a half just, you know what, off of the logic reservation, I'm sitting here wondering what type of mojo is in Detroit that a SVG, a Monty Williams, and a Dwayne Casey can all walk into a Detroit bar and all walk out having lost all of their ribs.
Yeah.
They go home with no holes.
The Monstars, man.
None. Like,
So it's no development.
It's a dead mission.
No development. No from the bottom up. No structure from the top down. It's a mess for every level of player / agents don't want that for their players.
Yeah.
So it's nothing to blame them. But the fact that Trajan Langdon realizes that, yeah, he shared it with us, but the biggest thing is that he realizes that, and he knows that he has to truly start over.
Yeah.
Like from the top down, and take whatever Tom Gore says for what you want with a grain of salt. What he is saying is he brought in Trajan Langdon to truly reshape the entire organization, to try to Chris Spielman, Brad Holmes it, to just start fresh, clean house.
A fresh
And that's
voice.
what he's trying to do. And that's how we get back to the going to work Pistons. That's how we get back to being a respected organization in the NBA. I'm optimistic. I like that it is a guy like Trajan Langdon doing it. Now he's got to do it.
Preach. And that's it. It's in the execution phase, and that's what makes this offseason very, very interesting, because even if it's not the moves that we want to see, even if we want this thing to go faster or not, we will know, even if it's moves that signal this thing will take longer, we will know who Trajan Langdon is still as a GM.
Yeah.
Because there's still a right way to do it the long way.
Like I said, is he more Brad Holmes or is he more Scott Harris?
Yeah. We've seen one be successful, the others two be determined, but
sounds like
we'll
Brad
see where
Holmes.
he fits. Yeah.
Sounds
What
like
about a
Chris
little bit of both?
Spielman.
Yeah. Hey, let's do it. Let's take a break, come back. Let's have Justin finish off his top 10 big board for the NHL draft tonight.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
We got Stevie Eiserman making picks. Number
Let's go.
15. Number 15 first. Let me tell you about Dispo.